Oh, that was sick. That was actually so cool. Yo guys, what is up? Moxsy on Borderlands 4 video, and today we are going over my Ordnance Amon build guide. Now, this is my first Ordnance build, and it did take a little bit longer because there's so many cool Ordnance combos. The build that I'm going to be showing off today does have some specific ordinances that it was designed for, but genuinely you can just pick up any that drop and mess around with them. They're so much fun. They're so powerful. This build makes you incredibly tanky and just does a lot of damage. It's a ton of fun, very versatile. I hope you guys enjoyed the build breakdown. So before we dive into the build, there's a bunch of complicated things underlining how Ordnance works and how to scale it properly. So we're gonna break that down first, and then we'll get into the skill tree. But the first thing I want to show you guys is Ordnance scaling with gun damage. Now, there is a specialization called Full Spectrum Arsenal that reads that your ordnance damage gets 50% of your increases to gun damage. However, this is 50% increase of the 100%. So this is basically 50% or 1.5x of your gun damage increases. Ordnance, generally, if it's a gun ordnance, like if you're shooting a rocket launcher or a minigun, it gets increases to gun damage without this. And then with this, it gets 50% more. So just show that off real quick. So I currently have 0 skill points spent in all of my trees. I'm not wearing any gear besides this enhancement that has gun damage increased by 25%, and my ordnance, which is some just random purple, basically, and I'm not spec'd into Full Spectrum Arsenal. But what I wanted to show you right now is if we take off this gun damage increase, let's just take that off real quick. We shoot our ordnance, try to get 1 tap at a time. That's a 1521 damage, right? Now let's put on a generic gun damage increase. So this has got gun splash radius, TDR, none of this, just the 25% gun damage is going up. So now we shoot this. We were 1521 before. Now we're at 1901 on each shot. 1521 times 1.25 is 1901. So we are getting exactly our 25% damage increase. So quick note, my base damage of my gun is 487. In my specializations, I have 12.22% gun damage. So I should be getting around 544 or 546 per shot. Does seem like there's some rounding going on there because I'm dealing 547. But if we then put these specializations to get 50% increases of our gun damage, so that we're getting basically an 18% increase instead of a 12% increase, I should go up to around 570-ish. Which puts me, when we do that, around 577. Once again, some rounding. But all this is just to go to show that we are getting increases to gun damage, and we get even more increases to gun damage if we respect this. So gun damage specs in our skill tree are going to be really good, and all the gun damage that we're going to get even more out of if we spec into this Full Spectrum Arsenal. It's a little complicated, but basically the way that we're going to want to spec our skill tree is to spec a bunch of gun damage and ordnance damage, because we're basically getting 1.5 of the value of gun damage. We're getting 1x the value of ordnance damage. So we're going to be putting 5 points into Scorched Kairos. This gives us more ordnance damage and magazine size, which is really, really nice. We're next going to put points into Tail of the Comet. Whenever Amon deals ordnance damage, there's a chance to apply a cryo status effect. This is a massive point. One, because it's going to give us a bunch of ammo back with some later skills, but also these can stack. Most dots in this game, besides for very specific instances, do not stack. However, this and something else that we're going to be using do actually scale or like can proc multiple times. Our next points, we don't really need ordnance cooldown with the setup. We're never gonna run out of ordnance, so this is kind of wasted points. We could go for some gun damage for 30% gun damage, and like for boss DPS, this is definitely the coolest option. I do want to point out that bullet hail, our gunshots have a chance to ricochet as an elemental shard, dealing cryo damage. Does work for ordnance, which is really, really cool, just to show you. So if we pull out our like little chain gun, let me just hit these guys so that they are targets. And as you can see, we've got like a bunch of these shards going around. The most fun setup, I would put points into bullet hail. If you're just trying to do like single target DPS to bosses, put points into Battleborn. You really can't go wrong here. Both are great. Just for the fun aspect of it, I'm going to leave my points into bullet hail. And then that gets us down into our later trees, where we're going to be putting points into icy rage. This gives us a bunch of gun damage, which once again is going to affect our ordnance, which is awesome. And then we're going to be putting points into primal surge. Now, in testing, with most of the weapons, you just need 1 point in this is going to be enough for this build. For most of the gameplay that you're going to be watching, I had 1 point in this. However, if you want to truly be able to use any ordnance in the game, I would put 5 points into this. It's just going to let you miss shots, shoot as much as you want. It is kind of quality of life. You don't have to really worry about like ever kind of missing shots, because this is going to get procced a ton, and it's going to get procced a ton by Blackout. This reads that ordnance damage has a chance to critically hit. Additional critical hits from direct ordnance damage applies shock. Now, once again, this is another dot that can stack up and up and up and up. However, there is a bit of a bug going on with this currently. So I only have 1 point into that shock skill. If I shoot this dummy, we're going to proc a dot for 59 damage. As you can see, 59 shock dot. If I put 4 more points into this to max it out to make it do 105% of my damage dealt per second, which is nuts, you can see it is still exactly 59. This does not go up with increases to points. The crit chance does increase, so the crit chance on it is nice. However, the rest of the points are just like a complete waste. Ours went up there because like we proc 2 in a row. But yeah, 1 point into this is doing the exact same amount of shock dot as 5 points. So for our skill tree, we're only be putting 1 point into Blackout. And then I'm wearing a class mod right now that's got 1 point into Ballistic Bulwark. We're wearing the Cyborg class mod, which is the one that you're going to want to look for this build. This Cyborg class mod, I believe, can roll into Primal Surge. You definitely don't need more than 5 points into this. You really don't need even more than 1. I'm infinitely sustaining all my ordnance with only 3 points into Endless Bombardment, and I was only using 1 point into Primal Surge. So this is a bit overkill, but just kind of for the quality of life of be able to use like any ordnance that you want. That is pretty cool. And then we're going to come into Red Tree. Red Tree has a lot of good things for us. We're not going to spec Green Tree because honestly, the Green Tree points are pretty mid getting down to like Cacophony. And once again, we don't need more points in Endless Bombardment. We are infinitely sustaining our ordnance without it. So we're going to put 3 points into Impetus. This is just like such huge quality of life, mainly because when we're holding ordnance, it slows us down. So now we just move faster. So that is really, really nice. We're going to put 2 points into Heavy Plate. We're going to be getting so much shield. So this is nice, more survivability. Here, I only put 1 point into Gut Punch. A lot of our ordnance is taking a bunch of time. So even with only 1 point into Gut Punch, we're proccing weakness pretty reliably. We're going to put 4 more points into Wield the Storm. Status effects and status effect duration are doing a fair bit of our damage because they're scaling off of damage dealt and we're doing a bunch of damage. So that's really nice. And then some of the big points here is Bullet Storm. Whenever Amon applies a status effect, which are shock and our corrosive damage over times are going to be proccing, we get Bullet Storm. This is a F ton of gun damage for us, which once again, we're getting 1.5, the percentage increases from our specialization. So that's really nice. And then the real reason we came into Red Tree, we get Berserk. This is bonus cryo damage after we activate our forward skill. Once again, forward skills are not action skills, so this gives us 30% bonus cryo damage on top of all of the other things that we're getting, and then we can put 3 points into There Is Only Red to give us increased bonus damage, as well as whenever we kill an enemy, we get duration restored. This doesn't really stack up on bosses unless you're using something like with AoE, like one of the guns I'll show you. But for the most part, this is just a ridiculous amount of bonus cryo damage on all of the ordnance that we're dealing. It's a huge damage increase for us. You just melt things. Now, for the weird part, I do want to mention that I mainly run the Crucible action skill on this build with 0 augments and 0 capstones. The reason for that is because we are going to be using the Specialization Tripwire. Reduces ordnance cooldown whenever an action skill is activated. If my ordnance goes on cooldown here, let's just shoot it into the ground real quick. So my ordnance is on cooldown. I could throw an axe, throw an axe, throw an axe, and now I have my ordnance back. So the other action skills don't do that. If you ever do run out of ordnance, you just throw an axe and it's basically back. It's really, really nice. You can use Crucible, or sorry, not Crucible. You can use Scourge for bossing if you want to with Cryonic Therm. You can shoot your ordnance while this is up, so you can get some extra like survivability and some extra bonus cryo damage. However, it's not necessarily needed. But if you are going to rock an action skill, I'd go Scourge with Cryonic Therm. I personally just like the quality of life of throwing my axes if my ordnance ever does go down. I don't have my firmware fully set up for this build, so we'll talk about that later. But in terms of gear, you can ignore guns. You don't need them for this build. For our actual like ordnance, I am a huge fan of the Bottled Lightning. This thing ticks really fast. It's great for mobbing. It's great for bossing. It'll do everything for you. The one thing to look out for on the Bottled Lightning is you want to try to find one with 3 in the mag. With this setup, you'll get to 4 shots. 4 shots is very, very cozy. You can just spam it. I have heard people in chat say that they're having issues with 2 in the mag, so try to find a 3 in the mag. This is farmed from the Origo Vault boss in Terminus Range, if you'd like to get one. But literally any ordnance works with this setup. I personally love this Utka with explosive rounds. It gives us increased damage and damage radius. It's cryo. It fires 2 barrels simultaneously. That one's super fun. Any Torg rocket launcher that fires multiple projectiles is really fun. I got this like dead spread radiation one. This one's great. The Streamer is really powerful, really fun weapon. The Atling guns, I think, are pretty cool. I'm not, like, the biggest fan of them, but they're very good. The disc jockeys are very fun to mess around with. The coolest thing about this build is genuinely, though, that you can just pick up an ordnance and use it. If it looks cool to you, give it a try. It'll work on this setup. You're not really limited by anything. But yeah, personal favorite is the Bottled Lightning. You can use this for bossing and mobbing. It's really the only thing you need, but half the fun is messing around with other ordnance. For your class mod, you're going to want an Explosive Cyborg. Mine is pretty dog water. It's got damage reduction, action skill damage, and shotgun damage. Nothing that I care about. The main thing that you're looking out for is you want to find a class mod with points into Ballistic Bulwark, points into Primal Surge, and points into Endless Bombardment. Any points into any of these are fantastic. For your shield, it's very important to get a Super Soldier. This is going to give you, when our energy shields are full, we get Overshield. That's not really the important part, because anytime we shoot our ordnance, we're going to get overshield. What is important is the fire rate, movement speed, and ammo per second. The ammo per second directly feeds into your ordnance. So for like low mag things like the Bottled Lightning, this is great. It also gives us movement speed, which we are very slow holding ordnance. So just like super important quality of lives. Once again, for your ordnance, you can use literally whatever. And then for your enhancement, this is where things can get a little bit interesting. Your enhancement, generic gun buffs, for example, gun damage on your enhancement, as we showed off in the beginning of the video, does increase the damage of your ordnance. So I've got one with a bunch of generic like gun damage, gun fire rate, gun splash, which is some extra damage. The actual enhancement roll I don't think matters, especially when you're going to be swapping around a bunch of ordnance. Just look for some generic gun buffs. For your like firmware perks, I obviously don't have mine set up. I apologize about that. But I would go 2-piece airstrike for the splash radius and the splash damage. I haven't been able to get 3-piece airstrike to test if this missile works, but I'm guessing it's more of a gimmick. But splash radius, splash damage is great. And then I'd probably rock 3-piece Deadeye honestly. 3-piece Deadeye gives every crit grants increased crit damage. Things like the Bottle Lightning hit so fast, they're going to be critting a ton. And so that is very, very nice. And we get even more gun crit, which once again works for Ordnance. And that is the firmware I'd recommend. We kind of already went over specializations, but just to mention it, the main thing is to rush down to Gadgeteer to get Tripwire, Full Spectrum Arsenal, and Fragmentation Payload. From there, some things that would be really nice is Riddle You This. I don't have enough points to get Riddle You This quite yet, but this would be a ton of extra damage for this build, so that is where I would head next. Guys, this is going to do it for the build video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what Ordnance is your favorite. Guys, this is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what Ordnance you're enjoying using the most. I'll catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.